Hello and welcome to another video of Wing Leader, a playthrough of a scenario. The last time I had a video or posted a video, I played this scenario, which is chronologically the first scenario in Wing Leader, the Spanish Civil War, and I would like to now move to chronologically the next scenario, Target Madrid. This takes place just a few days after this scenario, Target Madrid. This might be a little bit longer of a scenario. There's quite a few units in it. We have the nationalists bombing, and they are targeting this it's a factory. It's what it shows here, but in the game, the scenario states that this is a city block of Madrid where a lot of the Republican forces are defending. This scenario states it was one of the largest air battles up to this point, at the largest in Europe. Attack on a major city, capital city. We've got a lot of variety of aircraft in this scenario. We have German Ju-52s, Italian bombers and fighters, some German biplanes, and of course the Republicans fielding the Soviet fighters. So in this scenario, we've got a couple of new things that I haven't really shown in a playthrough before. One is we are going to be using the advanced bombing rules, bombing attack rules, which are in the second half of the rule book. And the scenario special rules state that we don't roll for bombing attacks in this scenario. Instead, each squadron scores 1 victory point if unbroken and undisrupted when it bombs. So there's great incentive for attacking the bombers and trying to force them to disrupt. So here's the starting setup. We have all the bombers located here, and these biplane bombers starting a little further up, with these 2 squadrons escorting, and 2 of these fighter squadrons doing a fighter sweep mission. And then over here, the Republicans are composed of 2 wings of fighter squadrons. You'll notice that in the scenario setup, they're in the dark, boxed in shading, which means they're in wings. So each of these formations has a wing leader. In this case, we've got Squadron A having the wing leader, and Squadron D or C having the wing leader. So I think actually I think I want to change that up. I messed that up. We're gonna have A and D. So this is the wing leader for this wing, and this is the wing leader for this wing. All squadrons are rigid doctrine, as was the case in most early war battles. They hadn't developed the more advanced fighting techniques that well, this will affect the cohesion rules greatly. We have some veteran squadrons. I've given those all to the fighters for the nationalists, and the 1 green squadron for the Republicans. And then we've got 2 experts, which the scenario special rules state these guys will award extra victory points if they can be shot down. All right, so setup is complete except for the vectors. Now, since these are wings, the wing leader only will place a vector. The others do not, they just follow the wing leader. So we're gonna have Squadron A. They're going to, we're gonna have them drop down here and try to go here. And we're gonna have these, the higher group, kind of come up here. Hopefully they can spot the enemy. All right, now I will go ahead and roll for these vectors. If a 6 is rolled for any of these, the nationalist player is allowed to relocate them 2 spaces. So let's roll for A first, and we'll roll for D. Okay, so both vectors start correctly. They are not moved. And let's start with the tally phase. So at this point, I don't think any tallies, well, I guess these guys could possibly tally if they rolled high enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They get +1. So yeah, if they roll a 6, well, especially here, this is a large formation, so they get a +2 to their tally roll. It's been a while since I've played, so I'm going to need to double check rules as we go and modifiers. But no squadrons have radios, so that is going to come into play with cohesion rolls, but not for tally. All right, so let's go ahead and have this squadron is going to try to tally this leading fighter squadron down here. I'm going to set this camera down, and they need to roll pretty high, so let's roll 1 dice, and we score a 3. So a 3 +2 for a large formation, +1 for being veteran is a 6. That's not enough to tally. Okay, let's roll for R. R is also going to try to tally A. And they roll a 2, so they fail to tally as well. These guys are just too far away. They will not tally. All right, let's now have the defender make their tally attempts. Now, per the rules for wings, when the wing formations do not have radios, only 1 squadron is permitted to make a tally attempt each tally phase. So we'll start by having this squadron right here, the wing leader, try to tally this leading, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, never mind. There are no veterans and there's no large formations in range, so they can't even make any tally attempts at this point. So no use even trying. All right, now we do have this flak battery right here that will be able to target the bombers as they come in. And that's some stuff I'll have to explain as we get to it. All right, so let's go ahead to the movement phase. So first off, we move the bombers. So we'll just move this bomber right here. 1, 2. Now, since we're using the advanced bombing rules, bombers are allowed to change altitude. They're also allowed to circle at some point in the scenario if they want. If they wanted to try to coordinate with some other formations or wait for an unspecified amount of time, they can begin circling and later begin moving again. But we're just going to have them move forward. So all these squadrons move 2. Then the actually, I think I did that wrong. I think it's supposed to be the escorts. Yeah, escorts move first. So I should have moved these guys first. Okay, then the unalerted squadrons, which is going to be these sweep fighters here. They are going to move forward. And now my interceptors are going to move towards their vector. Now, this is considered a balbo. It's a group of 3 squadrons in formation. So there's some special rules with regards to their movement. They cannot claim the +1 dive modifier. Make sure I'm reading that right. Yeah, no squadron may claim the 1 movement point bonus for diving. So we're going to have these guys just go 1, 2, 3, and have all these guys follow. These guys are going to move forward, get as close to the enemy as they can. All right. Now we come to the combat phase. There's no air combat, but we do have the opportunity to do direct flak attacks. So, looking at this right here, we do have this flak battery that is allowed to fire directly at enemies that are within one column on either side. So let's have this flak battery right here target this squadron right here, directly above them. I'm going to take some pot shots here. So flak can fire in two modes. They can do what's called a barrage, and they can do direct flak. If they do not have a barrage marker on the map during the combat phase, they are allowed to make a direct flak attack. And then during the administration phase at the end of the turn, eligible flak batteries can place a barrage marker or remove one if they have one on the map. Since these guys don't have one on the map, they can make a direct flak attack. Now, let me double check something real quick. Okay, so we see here this flak battery is heavy, which means it has the ability to fire up to any altitude. If it was a light flak battery, then it could only direct flak fire up to an altitude of 4. So these guys can reach, and they have that superscript of a little 1. That means they have 1 fire channel, so they can fire just once at something. If it had 2, he could fire at this one and at this one separately. All right, so let's go ahead and make this flak attack. We are going to reference this flak attack table right here. Let me move this. All right, so let's go ahead and roll 2d6, and we'll apply the modifiers that apply. All right, so firing at Squadron R, let's roll 2d6. Okay, jumped out of there. All right, so they rolled a 5. Look at the modifiers here. The strength, it doesn't have a strength. We see its strength is 0, so no modifier. There's no contributing support. Squadron's not marked with a slow marker. The target speed is not high enough to warrant a negative modifier. These are pretty slow aircraft. And then for direct fire only, these modifiers would not apply for barrage attacks. But if the target squadron's altitude is 6 or less, well, it's at 7, so it does not apply. And they're not too high for that negative modifier. They're not bombers aiming. We don't have improved fire direction or proximity fuses. And weather modifiers, well, we do have broken clouds here. So that's a -2 modifier for the clouds. So that's a pretty low roll. 5 modified down to a 3. We see here a 6 or less is no effect. Okay, now let's go ahead and go to the administration phase. We could possibly put up a barrage at this point, which may not be a bad idea. So places, let me check real quick where they can make their barrages. Okay. All right, so barrage can be placed at any of the junctions in between 4 squares up to 2 of these junctions away, or 1 full junction away, maybe, as I should say. So they could place barrage markers at any of these intersections, or this one right here, up to any altitude. So to demonstrate, we are going to put a barrage marker at this juncture right there. I should say we can. I'm not sure that's a good idea at this point. The bombers are still pretty far away. Where a barrage is particularly useful is to affect multiple units that fly through it. Direct fire is more effective at causing hits, whereas barrage is more useful for affecting multiple units. So actually, let's hold off on the barrage this turn, and we'll set that aside and use later. So they're going to keep themselves eligible for direct flak fire next turn. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to turn 2. We're going to start with the tally phase. So nationalist player, the attacker gets to tally first. Now, choices. They can try to tally these guys up here or down here. It would make sense, I think, to try to get these low flyers right here. So we're going to have Q try to tally. Let's start with the rear one. Let's see what his success is. He's going to try to tally A. So let's roll 1d6. He rolls a 3, +1 for veteran, +2 large formation. He successfully tallies. So R becomes alerted and places a tally on A. And then Q is going to try and tally B. He rolls a 4. That is going to be successful. Lots of modifiers. He becomes alerted and places a tally. These guys, K could potentially tally, but we're not gonna tally. We're gonna save him to possibly react for a later turn. Let's go ahead and move to the defenders, their tally attempts. Let's have these guys. Choices. If these guys tally, they're going to lose their wing formation. I think we're going to let these guys continue forward and not be bothered by these guys. So let's not let them tally. These guys, I guess we better try to have them. I wonder if they can reach these bombers. These bombers move here. 1, 2. They're not going to be able to make it. Yeah, we're going to have these guys try to defend against these attacking Italians. All right, so we're going to have the wing leader make a tally attempt against Q. And he rolls 1d6. Oh, he rolls very low. He rolls a 1. And he doesn't get any positive modifiers, so he fails that tally attempt. Which means the rest of these guys, because they're in a wing formation, they don't have any radios, they can only make 1 tally attempt. They are unaware of the fighters about to dive on them. Now these guys can make a tally attempt. But I think they're going to choose not to, because they're going to try to use their wing formation ability in tallying that big formation down there. Okay, let's go to the movement phase. First off, we move the escorts. So over here, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then the bombers. Now, bombing rules. All right, advanced bombing rules. So when bombers in these rules, they must fly a specific profile. So we don't really need to worry at this point about the different bombing profiles like dive bombing or glide bombing, because each profile gives you better results for certain targets and certain aircraft types, and you're trying to get the best modifiers to give you a good bomb roll. But in this scenario, you only score a victory point if you bomb undisrupted. So these guys are just going to do what's called a level bombing profile. In order to fly a level bombing profile, they must select their target and fly level over it. So basically, they're just going to fly 1, 2, and bombs away. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark them as bombing. And in this scenario, this is the only target, the factory. They can't bomb these guys. All right, next up, these guys are gonna move 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. Now we roll unalerted fighters, or I'm sorry, alerted fighters need to move, which is going to be the rest of these. Now we move in initiative order, which is going to be lowest to highest, so it's going to have to be this formation that moves first. So let's go ahead and move this guy. 1, 2. We got oh, he can move 3. Let's have him move, I guess, here. And then that's going to trigger R's movement. So he is going to dive and attack. And we want to attack from out of the sun. The sun is right upper. So if they attack from this position, they'll get the bounce, or the out of the sun modifier. So they're going to dive here, and then they're going to attack like so. All right, then these guys move. 1, 2, 3. That triggers this guy's movement. He's going to do the exact same thing and attack out of the sun. And then last of all, this guy moves. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now let's move these guys up here. They're going to go 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. All right. We do have diving modifiers for these CR32s. Let's go to the combat phase. All right, so we do have the direct flak at this point, which does get resolved before the bombing. You'll notice that in the combat phase, bombing attacks get resolved after direct flak attacks, which means that the outcome of the flak can influence the bombing, which in this case, if the direct flak attack can disrupt these biplane bombers, then they will not score a victory point per the scenario rules. All right, let's go ahead and roll a flak attack. Flak is going to target these bombers. So let's roll 2d6. Ooh, that is a nice roll. All right. Let's look at the modifiers here. So the target squadron is at altitude 6 or less, so that's a +1. The target performed a bomb aiming, which I guess we could have determined not to aim. That's actually optional for the attacker to aim. They could choose not to aim, which you would think would be silly, but I guess it would make sense for the attacker to declare they are not aiming. I guess they, thematically they're bombing up a city square, so I don't know how precise they're trying to be here. They're just dropping their bombs over the enemy. But where this is relevant is they can avoid this bomb aiming modifier. So let's say they did. Let's say that these bombers declared they were avoiding to aim, and so are therefore maybe flying a little more evasively, and the flat gunners don't get this modifier. Okay, no other modifier, so it's just a +1 for the altitude. So 11 + 1 is a 12. Well, so it wouldn't have made a difference whether they were aiming or not. They score 2 hits and a -2 modifier to the bomb roll. Now, we're not rolling in this scenario, so that we can ignore that. But they do score 2 hits. Let's go ahead and resolve these hits. Each direct flak hit is assumed to have a firepower value of 1. So let's roll. Referencing the RO37 has a defense of or protection value of 3, so we need to roll a 2 or higher to have an effect. So here goes the 2 loss checks. All right, that is a loss. That has no effect. Okay, so we do score 1 hit, or 1 enemy aircraft destroyed. So that is Squadron T. It's going to get marked with a loss. And let's go ahead and roll for cohesion. The cohesion modifiers simply being loss marker. So they get a -1. That's a 5. -1 is 4. Which does, surprise, surprise, cause a level of disruption. All right. Squadron T is disrupted. Now we resolve their bombing. And it is going to be no effect because they are disrupted. Yep, so it says do not roll bombing attacks. Instead, each squadron scores 1 victory point if unbroken and undisrupted when it bombs. If unbroken and undisrupted when it bombs? I'm not sure if that's supposed to mean the wording there makes me think that as long as he's undisrupted at the point he drops his bombs, I don't know. We're gonna say that the gunners did a good job and avoided a victory point scored by the nationalists. So we're gonna remove that bomb. And now we have these combats up here to resolve. All right, so we have CR32 versus an I-15. CR32 is the attacker and can choose whether to do turn or dive. They have the same ratings, but they are diving, so they may as well use their speed. All right, the CR32s, they have a speed of 2, +1 for diving, +1 because they're veteran, so they're a 4. The I-15s have a speed of 2. They are rigid doctrine, so that's a -1 as they're defending with rigid doctrine, so that is 4 to 1. So +3, -3. Now these guys both have edge, so edge cancels out. And let's go ahead and roll on the combat table. All right, let's roll 2d6. Attacker gets a 5. We look down here. 5 gets attacker is bouncing the defender, so that's a +1. And they do have an expert. Yes, R has an expert. So that's +1. So 5 + 2 is 7. So a 7 on the +3 is a single hit. Let's roll to confirm that 1 hit. CR32 only has a firepower of 0, but because there's an expert involved, it's a +1 to the roll. So let's roll for the hit. That's a 4. It's modified to a 5, which easily shoots down the I-15. So we're going to mark Squadron A with a loss. And let's roll for the defender. They roll on the -3 column. Wow, they roll very high. An 11. -1 for being bounced. And that's going to be a 10. A 10 on the -3 is a hit. So they score a hit against the CR32s. Let's roll to confirm the hit. And it's a 3, which matches the protection rating. That's a straggler on Squadron R. Okay, now let's roll for cohesion. First, let's roll for the attacker, their cohesion. It's a 6, +1 for attacker, +1 for veteran, -1 for no radio. So it's a 7. So they pass their cohesion check and are marked with low ammo. Let's roll for the defender. -10. -1 for a loss, -1 no radio is an 8. They surprisingly passed their cohesion check as well. Okay. Now, is there going to be a dogfight? I think the I-16s, or the defenders, I should say the I-15s, they would like to force a dogfight. If they don't, then next turn the CR-32s are still going to be marked with a +1 speed and would therefore be the attackers in the combat. So the best way they can avoid that certainty is to try to force a dogfight. So let's have each side roll. Blue will be for the nationalist, red for the defender or for the Republican. And that is going to be an avoided dogfight because they matched and their speed is better. Okay.